Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel The Mat Corner. This is Sayeda Bukhari and today we are going to be learning about what are joints, what are the types of joint with the examples so you can learn it very easily. So let's begin. Hello, first let's find out what is a joint itself. So joint are the places of union between the two or the more bones, or simply we can say that where the two bones come to meet one another, so that place is termed as a joint. Now there's an important law which is known as a Hilton's law stated by Hilton. So this that state that the nerve supplied to a joint also supply the muscles that move around the joint and the skin and the other structure which are present around the joint. So if we take a look over the figure over here, you guys can see that this is a shoulder joint. So in the shoulder joint is supplied by the axillary nerve which is coming from the cervical plexus. So the cervical plexus is giving out the axillary nerve, and this axillary nerve is supplying not only the joint itself but also the structures that are the muscles present around the joint, like the deltoid or the other group of muscle which are the part of rotator cuff muscle, that is the teres minor. So that is also supplied by the axillary nerve that is supplying the shoulder joint. Now if we talk about what are the classification of the joint itself, so we are classifying the joint on the basis of their structures into the three categories, which is number first is a fibrous joint, second is a cartilaginous joint, and the third is a synovial type, that is having the synovial fluid and the synovial cavity in it. So let's discuss about each of them one by one. So we're going to begin with the number first. There is a fibrous joint which is also termed as a synarthrosis joint. And what is the main thing about this joint is that they are joined by the fibrous tissue. They do not have any joint cavities in it, and they permit the little movement. So where there is a little movement, where there is a presence of fibrous tissue, where there is no joint cavity present, such a joint is termed as a fibrous joint. Like if we take the example, we can say the sutures of the skull which are present in the skull. So the sutures of the skull are the type of fibrous joint, as they have no cavity, only the fibrous tissue are present, and they permit little movement or no movement at all. And if we talk about the syndesmosis which is present at the ankle, so that is also having no joint cavity. They are having only the fibrous tissue and they permit only a little movement. So this joint are termed as the fibrous joint or the synarthrosis. Now the second one is a cartilaginous joint. So the cartilaginous joint are the joint that are united by the cartilage, and they have no joint cavity as similar with the fibrous joint, but they do have a cartilage. So the joint having the cartilage but not the fibrous tissue is termed as a cartilaginous joint, which we have discussed earlier was a fibrous joint. The fibrous joint were having the fibers or the fibrous tissue, while the cartilaginous joint are having the cartilage only. So we are dividing the cartilaginous joint into the two category, which is a primary joint and the secondary joint. So the primary joint is also termed as a synchondrosis, and the secondary cartilaginous joint is also termed as a symphysis. So the joint that are united by the hyaline cartilage, and they permit no movement at all, but they grow in length. So we can see the growth is visible in the joint, but there is no movement, and there is a presence of the hyaline cartilage in it. So such a joint is a primary cartilaginous joint, that is also termed as a synchondrosis. While on the other hand, the secondary cartilaginous joint, the secondary means that there should be a bigger level than the primary one, so they permit movement. So the joint that are providing movement having the cartilage or the fibrocartilage, so they are termed as a secondary cartilaginous joint. That is, they are also having the cartilage, but they are also permitting the movement over here. Slightly movement is seen, not the visible one, but there is a slightly movement that is seen on the joint, that is termed as a secondary cartilaginous joint, that are also called as a symphysis. So the example of the secondary cartilaginous joint include the pubic symphysis, that is a hip bone, and the intervertebral disc, that is shown over here. So the intervertebral disc is having the fibrocartilage, and they are also providing a little bit of movement, so they are termed as a secondary cartilaginous joint. While if we talk about the primary cartilaginous joint, so there is an example, that is a manubrosternal joint. So the manubrosternal joint that is present between the manubrum and the sternal bone, that is termed as a manubrosternal joint, and they do not allow the movement, but they do grow in length as in an individual growth process start. Now moving toward the third type of joint, that is a synovial joint, that is also termed as a diarthroidal joint. So what is the difference? So the synovial joint, as the word is indicating, that they do have a synovial fluid and they do have the synovial membrane, they do have the synovial cavity. So the structure that is having all these three points is termed as a synovial joint. So the synovial joint are the joint that permit a great degree of the free movement and are classified according to their shape of the articulation and on the type of their movement that they are providing. Like some joints are providing only the flexion extension, some are providing the abduction adduction, and some are providing all the movement like the flexion extension, abduction adduction. So let's discuss about each of them in detail. Let's begin with the simple one, that is a plane or the gliding joint. So the plane or the gliding joint is found where the two flat articular surface are united and they allow a simple gliding or the sliding of one bone over the another one. So that is termed as a plane joint. And the visible example of the plane joint is seen in the intercarpal joint, intermetacarpal joint, carpometacarpal joint, sternoclavicular joint, or the acromioclavicular joint. So these are the example of the plane gliding joint, as these are the joint where the two bones only slide or glide over one another. Now moving to the next one, which is a saddle joint. So the saddle joint resemble as saddles on a horse back, and this allow the flexion and the extension, abduction, adduction, and circumduction. So this is allowing the 1 2 3 4 5, so 5 movement are seen over here. That is a flexion, extension, abduction, that is away from the body, adduction, that is toward the median line of the body, and circumduction, that is movement all around the joint. So that is seen in the wrist. The wrist go in the flexion position, extension position, abduction, adduction, and circumduction. So that joint is termed as a saddle joint. Now the third one is a hinge joint. So the hinge joint resemble the door hinges and they allow only the flexion and the extension as the door open and close. So there is only flexion and extension seen. Like the elbow joint. On the elbow joint there is only the flexion of the elbow and the extension of the elbow. So this is a very easy one. Now moving to the next one, there is a pivot joint. So the pivot joint are formed by a central bony pivot. So it's a pulley or the wheel like a structure. So the pivot joint turning within a bone ring and allow only the rotation movement. So like the wheel go round and round, round and round. So that how this joint work, and it allow only the rotation movement. So this joint example is seen in the inferior or the superior radio-ulnar joint and at the atlantoaxial joint of the skull. So these are the places where this pivot joint, there is only the rotation movement is seen. Now the fifth one, that is a ball and the socket joint, which is a very visible joint and which we all can feel and see that. So this is joint that is formed where the reception of a globular, that is a ball like head of one bone fit into the cup shaped cavity of the another one, and that allow movement in many directions. So the ball and socket joint is the most mobile joint of the body. Like if we talk about the shoulder, so on the shoulder you guys can do the flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, circumduction, rotation. So all the movement is seen over here. So this joint is termed as a ball and socket joint, and the example include the shoulder joint and the hip joint. Now here we are to the last part of the video, which is a condylar joint, that is also termed as an ellipsoidal joint. So this is a joint that allow only the two type of movement, that is a flexion and the extension one, that is occurring in the wrist. So the flexion and the extension one. So this is a condylar joint. The wrist joint is a condylar joint, also termed as the ellipsoid joint. And what is the main feature of this joint is that they have the two convex condyle that articulate with the two concave condyle. So that is seen at the wrist joint. So the wrist joint is an example of the condylar joint. And this is all about today's video. I hope you enjoyed and learn about what are joint, what are the types of joint. And if you do so, then make sure to like and subscribe to the Mad Corners to learn more amazing concept with me. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.